Hello friends, today I would like to discuss Robert Frost's most celebrated poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and I will try to bring forth a new perspective by dealing with an alternative reading of the poem. Robert Frost was one of the greatest American poets, and he was famous for his realistic depiction of rural American life. He has been generally considered as a pastoral poet, an optimistic, religious, and a moralistic poet. As a literary artist, Frost holds a unique and almost isolated position in American letters. He received 4 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry and became an artistic institution since his death. To his credit, he has some of the most celebrated poems such as The Road Not Taken, Mending Well, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, etc. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening is one such famous poem which can be found in most of the school and college level syllabus around the world. Apparently, the poem is read as an optimistic and inspiring one, suggesting that one must be goal-oriented in life and should not have distracted from it. The reading of the poem goes like this. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house in the village door. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and the frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness belch a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Conventionally, the poem suggests that although the speaker is mesmerized by the worldly beauty around him, his conscience simply cannot let him carried away by them, as he is well aware of his duties, responsibilities, and commitments that he must perform before taking eternal rest. Man cannot afford to rest on his laurels or revel at whatever pleases his empirical senses, as there is a higher purpose for man, which drives him on to realize his true potential. Although the poem seems to have a very simple, straightforward and optimistic meaning, it raises a lot of questions. Reading the poem against the grain, one must notice a lot of contradictions within it. The poem provides us a number of words and expressions which give enough scope to discuss it in an alternative perspective. For example, in the 8th line, we find the phrase darkest evening. Dark is something which goes with the idea of night and not with evening. An evening cannot be darkest. If an evening is darkest, then how can we define the darkness of night? Again, in the 13th line, the speaker says, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. Lovely here is a positive word, and it cannot go with dark, which is negative. If something is dark, it cannot be lovely, and vice versa. Woods can be deep and dark. They are very suitable adjective to describe woods, but at the same time, using the adjective lovely is quite paradoxical. Darkness and night is a classical symbol of death and depression. Similarly, the use of the words like sleep, a situation like winter also supports the same connotation. Keeping this in mind, the last two lines become highly problematic. While the conventional reading of the poem suggests that the speaker is driven by the desire to achieve his true potential rather than rest on achieved laurels, if sleep implies death, there is a note of forced labor making the individual go on without any rest. This reading would also be substantiated by the notion of that of the horse, which the speaker should drive, but it is impatient and is one who drives the speaker instead. So, what is the horse? Is it a possession, an object that the speaker has subjugated and domesticated for using? Or is it something that is forcing him to push on despite his weariness and unwillingness? If this is the case, the horse becomes a symbol of anything and everything that man in his eternal quest to civilize nature has unshackled. Thus, the horse no longer remains a meek beast of burden, but it becomes something that compels man to keep on at his job, considering that this job does not have a sense of ending. Hence, such a reading of the poem would no longer mean that the speaker has a self-conscious desire to achieve his goal, which might be either materialistic or metaphorical, but seem to be traumatized by the world in which he lives, where he is forced to labor irrespective of his desire and will. Coming back to the last lines of the poem again, we generally read them with a rising note. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. This rising note generally denotes optimism in the poem, but the same lines can also be read employing a falling note. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Now, this falling note will undoubtedly employ pessimism, depression, and death wish. Since the poet does not provide us a clue as to how to intone these two lines, we can possibly have multiple interpretations and thereby conclude that the poem can also be discussed as a poem of depression and pessimism. That's all for today. Thank you.